Fun times, fun times. Now, why did that take over my screen completely? I don't want to do that. Let's turn you down. I hope everyone's doing well today. I do. Especially given how hilarious in the fold stream went earlier. But as I was sort of intimating, this is going to be more of a working session than anything. So if you're around in the QC, you're free to join the Discord. The setup for us is actually pretty simple. We have a new story. And as we've been going over the story for the last 2 days, is a story about Signal, and the leak has evolved and grown. It became clear very quickly that this is another way we can practice and figure out how not to think of elephants as we start refining the system. Because the process of how these things sort of work and how these things come about is kind of crazy. Well, I hope my audio is okay now. Is my audio mostly okay? I hope I'm doing all right. I got loud all of the sudden. Good Lord. Who would want that? Allow me to turn myself down just a little bit. There we go. That's much better. I didn't even downgrade. So here's what Windows does. You have your settings, and Windows is like, how amazing. You've gone through and you've changed all of your settings. You've disabled USB power suspension on all of your devices individually because there's no master. You've gone through and turned off all the ways that your mic auto adjusts or any other things in the registry. And then Windows updates because you accidentally decide to reboot without noticing that there's an icon. And it overwrites everything. And you have to do it all again over the course of 4 hours. It's a lot of setting. And I had to look up where settings are because registry keys are gone too. So all the shit I was used to, just, I hate Windows, but I'll tell you this right now. Fucking what else is good? I have a Mac. I've used Mac OS garbage. It's shit wall to wall. It used to be better when it was more Unix based. And then Linux used to be better. I don't even understand Linux anymore. Like, it doesn't give you root when you install it by default anymore. What the fuck is that? I felt like just the worst nerd ever because I called up a friend of mine. I installed Ubuntu on my home server and I was like, I don't know why I can't access root and why it says there's no root folder. And he's like, well, you have to create a root user. And I was like, what? I hate it so much. I hate everything. Oh no, you by default, Ubuntu doesn't create a root user, which means sudo doesn't really do very much for you. Not significantly. And in order to get into root, you have to actually create a root user that will allow, it's a nightmare. Who cares? It's all crap. It's all shit. No one cares. But here is something that is not. We have, and we're going to spend a little bit of time. Our agenda today is pretty simple. We're going to spend a little bit of time going over the old Miro boards. Everyone remembers the old Miro boards. We're going to talk through that. And we're then going to create a new part of the Miro board. And we're just going to go straight through and do this and set this up. For those who haven't joined, it is, one sec. No, it didn't let me log in. Fine. I'm going to switch back so you can't see my stuff. I don't want you watching how I log into these things. Thank you. There's this. Come on. And all right. Get to go back. How exciting is that? Let me make sure it's not going to give me some weird pop-up. Bingo. Excellent. Back to the whiteboard. Estelle's in there. Look at this. Welcome, Estelle. For those who need to go back over it, and we are going to spend a little bit of time going back over this. Lakoff wrote a book, How Not to Think of Elephants. The comment being that when someone says, hey, that's an elephant, it's really hard not to be thinking about elephants when someone's talking about elephants. As such, the people who kind of set up the conversation and create the beginning of that, create the conditions in which we critique them. This puts us in a very difficult position, because when someone creates that space, it means our criticism at best works counter to them or in their favor. But that's not what critique does. Critique is something that necessarily steps away from that and looks at both and subsumes them in something larger. The challenge with this is it has to be done fairly quickly. And if we can figure out a way to do this kind of fast, which I think we can, and we think out of a process for this, the ability for us to actually kick out responses and shift how we talk about these things is significant. And I think if we can come up with a process, we can come up with a way, we think really spend some time on this, I think there's a lot of room for us to actually do some interesting shit. So we started with our friend, and I mean that quite literally, because Chris is my friend on Facebook now, and his wife, and a bunch of people, and they don't know who I am because I'm not Brooks Brown on Facebook. And they're very lovely. They are very lovely, just nice people who are kind of doing the normal Midwest small church thing, if that makes sense. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. But that's kind of the setup. What we started with, there was this story of an Ohio pastor who wanted to help, now found guilty of running a homeless shelter. It's kind of a load of bullshit. We started looking into it. We found more. And we've kind of worked through this setup. What you do first is you figure out first the dominant framing. What is the actual stuff that's happening in the story? What is that thing? And then you put that to the side and you spend time working through the stakeholders, who's actually involved financially, materially, what are their relationships, how are the power structures and things like that. And then you actually take both of those and from them you derive a shared experience. What is the universalist message that actually is applying? Because why people like these stories and how people attach to this sort of final way that a thing is cemented, you might say, is because they are able to find in that story something themselves that they can invest in, that makes it easy to invest in, easy to make that pass into. So the universal values, big fucking deal. And with this, you use all of these to come up with a new framing. And there's a new framing that we started working on here that I think we can do a lot of really fun stuff with. But specifically, that new framing and how we can play with it is able to move into a different beast and actually become a template for us to do these things quickly. So, I'm not going to go over exactly what we did in each of these, but we are going to spend time with the reframing, and then we're going to start over and we're going to do this story. Because this story is fucking awesome, and I love it. I love it a lot. And I mean that. This story is a perfect example, and we're hitting early because there is no dominant framing. There's some threads of that are hardening, but even that is not working. It's just not working, honestly. So our ability to sort of go, okay, what do we want to do and how do we want to do it? Well, let's figure it out. 2 seconds. I'm going to make an adjustment to my big old whiteboard nightmare here. Let's move you up so you're just off screen. And we're going to squeeze you out a little bit. And we're going to move it like this. There we go. I'm actually going to shrink myself and move myself up here. So, when we got to reframing, and I want to spend time on specifically, someone kind of put this together, but there's a handful of things that I think are very good, consistent, universal things for people to play into and to talk about. When we talk about how people invest, the biggest thing to remember is that this is not a symbolic connection we're looking for. We're not looking for someone to find themselves in a symbol. We're looking for people to find a place that they can invest the forces of their own desire directly, socially into what's happening, that they can just push it forward. So the easiest place for that to start, and where we sort of ended up at, it's a great one, is starting with an admission of confusion. I've been trying this and it works extremely well. Kidnockin, who's streaming right now, also does this a lot when he's talking. The admittance of confusion and how difficult all of this is. And then restating. They're mad about what? Restate the primary players in not like our own way, but like restating them, giving them a way where we remove their investabilities. So for example, instead of saying this loving pastor, say the real estate developers and the guy who's renting to the pastor. This restate them. And then restate what they're mad about. Be like, they're mad about, wait, what? And then you pull back. You recall what I would say, what I use the term here is relevant horrors. Something in common memory, something in common experience that is screaming. What is this stream about? Titles vague? Oh, it is intentionally so. Don't worry. You'll come around. We'll get to it. This is it's a term for a thing that I've invented, and I kind of stole from Lakoff, but I've kind of turning into its own thing. So I don't know. I'm open, by the way, if anyone has a different way to call this. I've been using the this is not an elephant joke. The this is not a pipe Magritte picture is kind of the joke I've been doing. We'll get back around to it. After the relevant horror, then we define the despotic elements in here. And when I say despotic, the ones who are trying to place controls on meaning. And that's a very particular designation. They're the people who are trying to control signification, the people who are trying to control the stories in that very particular way. And then we reframe it with a hyperlocal contextualization, not to them. Again, when we speak about hyperlocal, it's not that I'm saying, hey, I want to specifically talk to you about what's happening in Washougal, Washington, a town of 15,000 people. No, what? That's not what I'm talking about. But instead, creating the context around hyperlocality for the person and how it affects particular people and them. The hyperlocal contextualization is really important. This thing is not indicative. It is not going to go above your head, contingency. Don't worry. Don't worry. It's cool. Trust me. Just kind of roll with it for a little bit. Just roll with it. It'll be cool. Because we're about to do it again. And it's actually kind of a really fun little process. It was fun last time, and I think it'll be more fun for this. But the idea is to kind of go, hey, how I'm about to frame this to you and how I'm telling you the story is showing that it is not about you, your city, or your thing, but instead that it is a hyperlocal contingent event. Right, as a thing. And here is how that contingency affects things. So you want to move things away from the global persons to the hyperlocal, how it affects them directly. This is kind of how these people have used this in a lot. So when we talk about these things, the framing for this is, and someone wrote this, I think it's perfectly fine, and I'm not even going to critique it. This reads like a web of confusion. I mean, who would want to keep a homeless shelter closed? I don't understand why they just didn't let the government fix everything like they offered to. Did the landlord really call in out-of-state corporations to come prevent a small town from helping their local homeless shelter? God, I don't know if you've ever seen, but there's these videos of these big places catching fire with people in it, and it's an image I'm simply never going to get out of my mind. I just hope that they let Dad's place get fixed and they let the city help and they get out of the way so that these people can help the people that are needed without putting them at risk of burning like I watched. As if the homeless need something else to worry about. This is fucking whoever wrote this. I don't know who did this. Perfect. This is the idea. It's this thing we're doing. This is the story of Dad's place. So this is the map of Dad's place and the story of everything. We don't really need all of that, do we? Not really. What we need is we need a couple of the boxes. I'm just going to grab a couple. Goddamn. Doop-a-doo. Doop-a-doo. And doop-a-doo. Come on. Come on. Really? All right, fine. We'll just take the text then. I don't need anything else. I will make another box. All right. We pop that out. We head over. We go do another one. That's fine. I'll ungroup all this shit and we'll clear it out. Boop. What the fuck? No. Boop, 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 boop. All right. We are gonna just delete a whole bunch of shit. Boop, 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 boop. Go away. And then I saw some other shit down here for my doodles, which we don't need again. And oh, boop. Sorry, I'm slow. It's the way it works sometimes. And last one, pop. And I don't really need these lines over there. All right. So this is really the matrix of all of it. And we are going to just actually create a lock for these, set them up, and that is the thing. All right. Pop it over so we have another copy for next time. All right. All right. Nightbot is posting fucking way too much. What the fuck? We are going to turn you down, my friend. You're a little antsy. And then we're going to turn you down. So that way people aren't annoyed as a thing. Boom. Okay. So let's start with the biggest thing here, which in my mind is the Atlantic article as a whole thing. I have had issues getting this article showing up again because they seem to be blocking Wayback Machine from getting it, but let's see if we can grab a couple versions. Nope, they've pulled it down everywhere. That's fucking great. Doesn't matter. We can grab it from somewhere else. If anyone else has, right now I'm in the QC. If anyone has, wants to help or add things, feel free to add to the voice chat. I love 92. Let's just do it. Atlantic Signal. Yeah, we'll just go with MSN's story, which is perfectly fine. And that didn't even display the rest of the article. I hate MSN so much now. Try Deadline. Deadline is MSN too. What the fuck, man? All of this shit is just completely broken now. Atlantic Signal. There. Post. Boom. Fucking Christ. It's all paywalled. I hate everything so much. Thank you, AP. Jesus Christ. All right. So, here's the story as it's happened. If you aren't fully aware, we're going to kind of go lightly over it and just talk about it, because we're not here to revisit the story. This is not a news show. That is not my job here. Here is a short version. The Atlantic, a major reporter at The Atlantic, who has been around for a long time, Jeffrey Goldberg, was invited to a Signal group chat on the Signal app, which is a encrypted end-to-end, good but complex communication service, and appeared in it, joined, confused why he was there, because he was out shopping at the grocery store, and no one told him he was going to be in it. And lo and behold, it was just a bunch of, chats about bombing Yemen and the Houthis. And no one knew he was there or acknowledged he was there in any capacity. So he sat down and he went, hey, this is a little fucking weird. Why are we doing this? What's happening here? And he kept them. He kept just sitting. And he watched as they had really strange back and forths politically. He watched as they had very weird discussions about how much we hate Europe. And then he watched as they literally described the next 6 hours and the particular attacks and the types of weaponry and when they would happen and where. Like, absolutely confidential information from a war moment came out. And they are, I would say that the dominant framing is kind of all of these messages. And we're going to just get them in the chat and we'll kind of go over them just lightly because I think there's things that are worth pulling out for each one. But these are them and the people who are involved in the entire thing. That's not this. No, fuck you, Imager. Amazing. How did you get an ad past me? That's fine. Pop another. And I'm going to post the Miro in my Discord again, in case you want to join and watch there. It'll be in the stream chat. No Elephants Project is right below that. I'm just going to toss the Miro in there, so that way anyone can join if you'd like to. It's open. Don't be a dick. As a thing. That's just the rule. Don't be a dick. Okay, that makes sense. All right, good. Just don't be a dick. Let's see. Let's get a couple of these guys in here. That twice. That once, twice. I understand your concerns. Next. And we just keep going down. There are some very particular dynamics that I actually think are worth spending time on in here. And I'm going to go ahead and we are going to talk about that because this is going to be part of the way we do the dominant framing and talk about the current conversation. But first I want to get all these guys in there because it's really, really important to have the right things in there. Why can I not close this fucking... God, this is frustrating. Sorry, I've just got Imager open showing me videos of some girl in her prom dress. I have no idea. Like making... I don't understand anything anymore. All right. Michael Waltz at SM. There's that one. Copy image. Keep going. And then keep going. And then most of these are, the rest of them are, this is the emoji one. And then there we've got the list of people. All right. So here is the setup as we want to go through it today. These are all of the texts. I have a couple other things that I want to be adding in here, but I want to go through a handful of videos. Can Signal be hacked? No. Signal's very solid. So this is the thing. Signal itself is actually very, very secure. Everything that attaches to Signal. This is, if you don't understand core security in all digital devices is based on trust. And you have to consider zero or total trust. There's no such thing as a 20% trust space in the world of security. You either have trust or you don't. In Signal, if you are logged into that app, in that app, no one is able to do fucking anything. There's social engineering that can hack into it in the sense of like, if they figure out how to get you to let them in, sure. But inside of Signal, it's pretty fucking solid. The devices that are attached to Signal, though, are anything but. And since it has to be interpreted via device and has to be displayed on a screen and has to be transmitted in some capacity, that process has intermediaries. And those intermediaries are everything but secure, especially when you're on a non-governmental secure phone, which it turns out all of them were. Like really. Signal itself, if they were not using anything else, if they were on like fully secure government phones, they would be effectively fine, perfect. Like they're fine, as good as it gets. I shouldn't say perfect. It's as good as it gets, but it's not because they were on their personal phones across the board. So that is part of what I want to sort of talk about today, because we're going to start with One sec. I'm going to actually just get a thing running really quick. Up the signal human debacle and tell me. I'm going to have an AI tell me all the fucking. Tell me the dominant framing elements. For Lakoff, let's go back to writing, which I pulled over. Come on. Yep, just want to pull in, grab you. This rubric. All right, we'll come back to that in a minute. The way that Fox News is going over it, and we're going to watch a couple, and I thank Lilia for sharing a few of these with me, because they are absolutely awful. These people are fucking terrible across the board. They're genuinely acting like people don't give a shit.
Now clinging to their one piece of manna from heaven, a story about a high-level White
These fucking people.
House group chat on the encrypted messaging app called Signal, which is a complete joke coming from the very people who approve the app, the use of the app, and intentionally leak materials to journalists all the time.
This is how they're going to do this. This isn't going to stick. They're going to have to figure out something different, but this is basically what they're running with.
By the way, let me warn Democrats, there is information that will be coming your way very soon to show what utter, complete, phony hypocrites that you are. Just stay tuned. We're on the case. But
we are ready to show that you are as big a piece of shits as we are, and you're owned.
We get it. Far left, Trump-hating journalist Jeffrey Goldberg was somehow accidentally included on the group chat as cabinet-level officials discussed possible military strikes in Yemen. But let's be very clear. There was no classified material revealed in those texts.
There was. And just again, to bring that up, because it's worth just every time that they say this, it's worth just mentioning. Here is Pete Hegseth right here. Outlining the time of day, the place, and where a strike will happen that will kill a Houthi leader and his girlfriend and other people around him, followed by other strikes. And he does so at 11:44 Eastern Time for strikes that will not actually hit until 1:45 Eastern Time. So 2 hours warning, which is, by the way, more than enough when it comes to operational security in any of these things. They're going to continue. But again, this is because when Lakoff says, try not to think of an elephant, the right is now the one fucked because the dominant narrative is not the right. That is not what Sean Hannity's saying. This is not the dominant narrative. This is the response narrative. The dominant narrative is you just don't care about national security. That's actually the dominant narrative, is a conversation around national security. This is the dominant response. Right? That makes sense?
Caroline Levitt made the proper distinction. There is a difference between, quote, sensitive policy discussions and, quote, classified information.
It's 100%. It's not either of those, actually. It's technically unclassified confidential information. It has its own designation, which is, by the way, just as important. But that's the thing they're doing. They're saying it's not confidential because the dominant narrative is that it is confidential. Again, I'm not saying that's the dominant narrative.
Did the administration want Jeffrey Goldberg included on that high-level group chat? Of course not. It was an unfortunate, inadvertent, one-off error to accidentally include a reporter on that text chain. But as reported, steps have already been taken to prevent this from ever happening in the future.
That's not possible. So they're just lying.
Sure. But you got to put things into perspective. The mission in Yemen was operationally a complete success.
There's, again, non sequitur. It's a non sequitur.
It can't get any more successful. And as President Trump has been pointing out, the left's current bout of hysteria is ridiculous. It's hypocritical. It's dishonest. In other words, just a typical day for Democrats. Take a look.
I think it's all a witch hunt, that's all. I think it's a witch hunt. I wasn't involved with it. I wasn't there, but I can tell you the result is unbelievable because the Houthis are looking to do something. They want to know, how do we stop? Can we have peace? The Houthis want peace.
I don't know what the fuck he's saying.
Because they're getting the hell knocked out of them. It's been very, very strong.
He is dying slowly.
The Houthis are dying for peace. They don't want this. And they're bad. Look, they were knocking ships out of the ocean. You know, we had in the Suez Canal, they only have about 20% of the ships going through. They have to go through a different way, which takes weeks of travel. And that really affects commerce. But the Houthis have been hit hard and they want to negotiate peace.
Why focus on the successful military operation when you can trash Donald Trump and people that work for him? President Trump is right. The Democratic Party, they're at it again with the legacy media, state-run media's help, of course. On X, the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, he described it this way. It's actually perfect. So let me get this straight. The Atlantic released the so-called war plans, and those plans include no names, no targets, no locations, no units, no routes, no sources, no methods, no...
Do you love that this exists? I love that this exists because they're just lying. But it's like, no name, no targets, no locations, no units, no routes, no sources, no methods. Like
classified information. Those are some really, wow, bleep war plans. Hegseth continued, we will continue to do our job while the media does what it does best, peddle hoaxes. And as per usual, like most other Democratic smears,
they're doing their best. They're just doing their best.
Even taking his comments about Hamas completely, utterly out of context. Here is what Steve Witkoff actually said. Take a look.
I thought we had a deal, an acceptable deal. I even thought we had an approval from Hamas. Maybe that's just me getting duped. But I thought we were there, and evidently we weren't. So this is on Hamas. The United States stands with the state of Israel. There's just
as nothing but a bunch of Joe spent hundreds of billions of your dollars, and guess what? Donald Trump is.
Yeah, he's just going to go off, and it's just terrible. It's just so fucking crazy. Yeah, this is after the second tranche of leaks. So this is, again, the level of lies is beautiful. We're just going to watch a couple of these because these are more responses than the main story, and we'll go to the main story. Because through this, I think
no one died except for terrorists. There was no collateral damage. The mission was a success. And Democrats think they have a scandal. Accidentally adding someone to a group text, which we've all done, is the new Watergate. The National Security Advisor.
I love how fucking stupid Jesse Waters is and always has been. Like, it's genuinely amazing to me. These people are just, we've all done this, you know, cabinet level. You've been cabinet level, right?
Mike Waltz, his staff accidentally added an American reporter to a group text of Trump.
I know companies, most companies, if you added a reporter to a group text about anything that was even slightly private, you'd be fired instantly. So, yeah, I mean, this is a thing people have done.
Officials who were discussing an attack on Iranian proxies. And the reporter accidentally added to the group text wasn't a good guy. Wasn't like our very own stupid son of a bitch, Peter Doocy.
It happened to know the guy's a total sleazebag. The Atlantic is a failed magazine. Does very, very poorly. Nobody gives a damn about it. This gives it a little bit of a shot. And I will tell you this, that they've made up more stories, and they're just a failing magazine. The public understands that.
Jeffrey Goldberg got the scoop of his life by accident because somebody may have fat-fingered him into a private chat. He says on the group text, Hegseth shared war plans for the Houthi rebels. Pete says, no, I didn't. Classified material never entered the chat. Yeah. So it's a he said, she said. Goldberg's the she. Yeah, he read some things he probably shouldn't have. It was an accident. Accidents happen when you're taking action. If you sleep all day like Biden and take no action, well, that's a different.
This is all they can do is respond to the dominant narrative. Now, what is that dominant narrative? Let's go to the Washington Post. Guarantee you it's on the front. All right, let's not go to the Washington Post. What the fuck? Let's go to CNN. All right, analyzing the Trump officials' group tasks. The texts have sparked horror and alarm among current and former national security officers. This is the dominant framing, by the way, when we talk about this. This is what it is. Here are the messages they sent. Genuinely, they blew up a civilian building and killed a bunch of people. This setup, and I really love it. But this is what happened. And The Atlantic published these texts across the board. The texts have sparked horror and alarm among current and former national security officials because they were sent on an unclassified commercial messaging app that officials fear might be vulnerable to foreign hackers. This is it. This is the entirety of the majoritarian position on this. Okay? So when we talk about the dominant framing, this is the dominant framing as a thing. The dominant framing is this. This is what what we might call the Kantian term. I use it, but it's a common one. The good sense or the common sense view of this. That's what the dominant framing is. The idea that the number one problem with this, in fact, the only problem most people are considering, is that national security officials are upset because these messages were sent on an unclassified commercial messaging app that might be vulnerable to hackers. Now, here's the fun thing, and this is where I can tell you already where they're going to find ways to beat the shit out of this, and the Republicans will. First off, Signal is not vulnerable to hackers, not really. So this is going to get into that one particular place that doesn't go well. And that particular place is nerd shit. Do you know what doesn't go well? Nerd shit. If I have to give you the nuanced story of, well, I mean, sure, Signal's generally pretty safe, but I mean, their phones might not have been if they were using these other phones in these particular ways at these particular times. That's not going to last. But this is the dominant framing. This is the dominant framing overall. So how is it being set up? Well, it has to do with, and we just lay out the things. This has to do with, generally, national security is the dominant conversation, right? If anyone's free to just fucking disagree with me, by the way. But national security is number one on the list. No. And then we've got secondary framings is kind of military. It's a military fervor that's pushing underneath this. And so it's military in danger. The Atlantic article specifically said they didn't reveal this early because it could have put lives at risk, right? So military is in danger because it's not secure at a national level. Ostensibly, this has to do with sort of confidentiality and trustability at that base level. And so that's why they're going after credibility. That's why the response is to go, hey, nothing was insecure. In fact, you're the ones who are lying. that kind of response. But this is the setup for the dominant framing. And I actually haven't seen another attack on this. And we're talking about stuff that really does matter. Because stuff that, for example, is not making it into that dominant framing, for example. And I'm going to change the color for these guys. And it's going to be, we'll make it light blue because no one's talking about this stuff. Is, like, to me, this is the biggest. One of the things that they've said many times and the CIA director said under oath, is that, hey, we're going to go ahead and, it's okay for us to be using this because we use it the way that we're allowed to be. Keep saying this over and over and over. And the craziness of this, I think overall, puts us in a position where it's, someone's typing something. The craziness of the position that we're sort of sitting with is that he claims, I'm using this the way this we're supposed to, but, and he says this, what we're supposed to be doing is having someone copy out the messages as they're done. They're not supposed to just disappear into time. This is actually a really big deal for a lot of reasons. And we'll get into that because this is, I think, where we start talking about other incentives, but FOIA records and just general records at all. Even stuff that like, it wouldn't surprise any of us if presidents are ones who destroy recordings, they destroy records or whatever. But the president and the people in charge want those records. That's the thing, is like Trump uses these, or the people around him are going through every conversation they can, constantly looking for loyalty tests, people going against his interests, whatever it is. All of that shit is like part and parcel to proper power structures inside of the way that these things work. So there's not sort of a record keeping or FOIA record conversation that's happening. On top of it, the conversation hasn't touched into the fact that it's a war crime. Let's grab these texts. I'm going to make them a little bit bigger so we have them. So the conversation that they're having and how they're aiming it is pretty simple. Target terrorist is at his known location, should be on time. He's at his girlfriend's. Specifically, we learn he's at his girlfriend's. So they're going to bomb him at his girlfriend's apartment. This is the opposite of what is supposed to be the rules for drone strikes or for bombing or killing anyone. You are supposed to do everything you can to minimize, not simply wait for someone to be in a civilian building and then blow them up because you can. That's not the setup. It's not the way that it needs to work. And that mentality is actually something that, sure, no one cares right now. But again, this is actively a war crime, and it is being talked about in the space of war crimes. It is terrorism. This is accurate, but it's terrorism in that way that, like, even in theory, we care altogether. Yanni, we earlier today we went through the chat. I'll post the Imager link as well, so that way we can have that. One second. All right. It is in the stream chat, or No Elephants project. Sorry. No Elephants project in the QC. Join the QC. Discord.com. Discord.gg/DGQC. You can join, say hi, all that fun stuff, and take part. If you like what I do support it. You'll see the bot crawling through with the random links. Super chats, subscriptions, likes, all that shit helps. Because we are definitely doing a weird thing here. And if you like it and you want us to keep doing it, weird things require a little bit of extra love. That's like another thing. No one's having this conversation of like, oh, was this bombing justified at all? Like, wait. So we literally are now just waiting for civilian buildings to be involved in killing people. Yes. We're okay with this. Again, no one's reporting on what is my favorite thing, and I think a really fun side of this, which is the power dynamics at play. If anyone's worked inside of a large, like, matrixed organization or corporation, there's a couple behaviors that I think you don't know about that come about if you're around people who are in that weird position of being, I don't know, a leader of a department or a CEO or whatever that is, in that weird hierarchy that exists in the corporate structure that also exists in our political structure, because we are, We're not imaginative people. And it has to do with the way people jockey for power when someone else has all of it. I always talked about this when I was John Landau and James Cameron were my bosses. And James Cameron has all of the power. He is, of course, he's fucking James Cameron. John Landau, rest his soul, was the second in command. He was the producer of Titanic. He left Fox to work for Jim and get that done. And then from there, just helped Jim just kick out movies and did a phenomenal job until he passed. But how John existed, and it wasn't just John, it was Jim's wife, it was all the people around him. This happened at Lucas with George. This happens whenever you have someone who has a lot of power, everyone else is jockeying. And how they do that is they try to help build little mini kingdoms. And they try to make comments like, actually, I'm not sure that dear leader knows X, Y, or Z, and I might correct him on it, which is what happens effectively right here. We actually see J.D. Vance say, hey, I am actually going to correct this. He is clearly pushing for this not to happen. And he makes some stat claims that are wrong, but he says at the end of his note, I'm willing to support the consensus of the team and keep these concerns to myself, but there is a strong argument for delaying this a month, doing the messaging work now on why this matters, seeing where the economy is, etc. And Joe Kent, who is a Nazi, and I mean that, he had Proud Boys on his staff and he courted Nick Fuentes. He ran for Congress in my district, so I know Joe Kent very well. A man absolutely went, sure, down. Now, this is not a small thing. This is not just agreeing. When you're inside of a power structure like this, agreeing is siding. It's saying, yeah, okay, you might be right here. I'm going to say yes. And John Ratcliffe says, hey, we're supporting now, but a delay wouldn't hurt us. Additional time might even be good. Backing him too. Pete Hegseth says, I understand your concerns and fully support you raising this with Trump. Important considerations. And he goes sort of waiting a few weeks or a month does not change anything. We're ready, but if you want to go to him, let's do it. And Waltz, who is actually, Waltz isn't the guy. He's not the guy. It's crazy, but he pushes back on Vance. Everyone else in the chat, and we're talking about, again, silence being as important to see as words. We're talking over the course of J.D. Vance writing at 8:16, over the course of 15 minutes, 16 minutes. No one else disagrees until we get to Michael Waltz, who flatly says, no, this is what Trump wanted all the way. And then he adds Stephen Miller. This is like adding the babysitter. It's an amazing mentality because Stephen Miller's now added, and Michael adds his point a second time. He had already made this point. He adds it a second time here, and then he shits on J.D. Vance in front of everyone. And this is like a dominating move over the course of the next few minutes, which is incredible. Right? This is where he adds Stephen Miller. I've got that. Do I have that twice in here? I do. Let's get rid of that. He adds Stephen Miller, and then with Stephen Miller there, and Waltz pushed back really hard, almost immediately Vance goes, hey, if you think we should go, we should go. I just hate Europe. Now that Daddy can see, make sure our messaging's tight. And Hegseth says, yep, Europe sucks. But Mike's right here. Now that Stephen Miller's here, everyone fucking bitches out. Everyone bitches out in every single way. And is just like, Trump was right. We shouldn't disagree with Trump. It's not a place for us to disagree. I think we should. POTUS is the one who ultimately retains decision space. And Stephen Miller weighs in and just says, we're doing this. Green light, we move on it. And Hegseth says agree, and then they go from there. The power dynamic here is actually really amazing. And there hasn't been anyone reporting on this. There hasn't been anyone reporting this yet. It's fascinating to me. No one cares. Again, this is kind of that we're in this place where there are camps in the president's office. A lot of people talk about the Trump administration as being one big push. It ain't. These are These are people who are on like a Thiel side of things, a Peter Thiel and that mentality, which is very different than Trump and Musk, who are kind of on the other side of things. And even Musk and Trump aren't seeing eye to eye. And so it's JD Vance versus Musk kind of, and we've seen that in a couple of bits of leaked audio that everyone thinks is fake, but probably isn't fake. These things that are happening are showing cracks in an org that we know Trump is no longer really fully in charge of. It's not like his first presidency. We know this. So the power dynamics, to me, are utterly fascinating. And no one cares. No one cares. Frustrating. But ultimately, this is kind of the setup here. So when we talk about counterframes and the way that they're responding to it, thank you for whoever did this. I'm guessing it was Lillian. Just a guess. The counterframing of it is responding directly to none of these things down here. No one cares. You'll notice it's at these, 100% these things. What was who did this? What was the bad thing? Downward emphasis on responsibility. An unnamed staffer mistakenly added Goldberg. This was what Trump said first. It was like, maybe Goldberg got someone on the inside to add him. You know? Maybe, maybe he did something himself. He's a piece of shit. My guys aren't pieces of shit. Don't you think the piece of shit probably did the thing that makes him a piece of shit? That was basically a response. Calling it a mistake, making it light. Again, they don't have a response to the idea of like, it's insecure, but they're framing it against that. Well, so what if it's insecure? It's just a mistake. It's not a big deal. Everyone screwed this up. Everyone's done this thing. This is just a policy debate. This is just discussion. It's fine. Don't you want transparency in government? And by the way, that's where they're going to end. Not as a hint. I'm just letting you know because I've seen it before. So what we're seeing is that Waltz, who is, as we saw, squarely in the president's camp of things and against Vance and the Thielites, he's being guarded by Fox News. He's being guarded across the board and also by Republicans in Congress. I want to, let me see if I can pull up the stream I had on from earlier that I was watching because it's horrifying. It's horrifying. Let me see if I can find it. Because it was like, I just couldn't believe it. I think, does this let me go that far back? It does. It does, I think. Yep, good. Okay, we're going to jump around just because this is fun. I don't give a fuck. This is just fun. I watch Live Now on Fox because they're hilarious to me. And specifically, we're going to do this cut. I liked it. Capitol Hill is having a hearing at this time about Doge and NPR and PBS. Doge is trying to destroy NPR and PBS, which no one should be shocked by, right? No one should be shocked by. And I'm going to get rid of that chat because it says some awful things.
Ideas. While programs like Independent Lenses, Matter of Mind, My Alzheimer's explores the challenges facing many American
Marjorie Taylor Greene is like the worst human alive.
families. And we celebrate what makes our country great. A Capitol Fourth and the National Memorial Day concert honor our nation's ideals, our service members and our veterans. Looking ahead, we will mark our nation's 250th birthday with the landmark initiative headlined by a new major series from Ken Burns, The American Revolution. Our educational programming for children is one of the most important aspects of our service to the American people. I strongly believe that the programming we offer to prepare children for the future is the most essential work that we do. Today, more than half.
She hates what PBS does for kids. I just want to say, she hates what PBS does for kids. Did you see the eye roll?
Of all has helped 10
It's just a fucking awful bitch.
Value to
America back into a manufacturing meeting, strengthening voter citizenship verification. These are the common sense solutions that only Democrats could oppose. But voters deserve elections they can trust and critical confidence in the Houthi drone chief, his deputy, and several of their drone experts and other key leaders. We also destroyed command and controlled facilities, weapons manufacturing facilities, and advanced weapons storage locations. And it's important to remember why this powerful action took place in the first place. Because of Joe Biden's incompetence and pathetic weakness on the world stage for years. The Houthi terrorists.
If you didn't remember in the Signal chat, which we just went through, They said specifically we need to focus on how Joe Biden enabled this. And like she's doing it.
Grew emboldened.
It's amazing.
Immediately after taking office in 2021, Joe Biden removed the Iran-backed Houthis from the foreign terrorist organization and specifically designated global terrorist list. Did anybody in this room ask the Biden administration at the time why they made such a stupid mistake?
Actually, a lot of people at the time did, and they had very particular reasons for it. And by the way, Biden, over the course of 2024, drone struck and killed more Houthis over the course of his 4 years than Trump probably will. Obama killed a lot more too, by the way. They've absolutely been horrifying to Yemen and committed genocide and war crimes against Yemen, both. So they're, again, we're not fighting for the good guys here. We're not fighting for them. Fuck Biden.
This reckless action undid the designation put in place by President Trump during his first term, and what followed was predictable and devastating. The Houthis targeted U.S. military ships and aircraft, hit commercial ships, including U.S. flagged vessels, threatened our personnel overseas, and attacked our allies in the region. This resulted in more than a year of U.S. flagged commercial ships being prevented from safely sailing through the Suez Canal, the Red Sea, and the Gulf of Aden. This had a massive negative impact.
Trump killed more people in Yemen. Yeah, let's see. That's not how I understand it, but again. Oh, that's from yesterday. Oh my God. I hate finding random articles as I'm doing things. All right, so we're going to keep that one open there, and we're going to find this other article. Let's see. Come on. Click here, if not redirected automatically. I don't have high hopes for you to redirect me correctly. This 3 American soldiers, 3 service members. This is All Sides. I don't even know what All Sides is. Okay, here we go. Newsweek. God, it's like 9 clicks to get to the fucking real article. Let's see. Show me the numbers. This is it's U.S. troop deaths under Joe Biden. They don't care about Yemeni deaths. I don't give are you fucking kidding me? This doesn't have to do with the deaths of people. Has to do with how many troops died. Fine. We'll get back to the video. All right.
On global trade of the economic security of the United States. Joe Biden was the commander-in-chief, and he sat on his hands while the United
Thank you. Thank you, Pippa. As of 2 January 2025, Houthis recorded 931 American and British airstrikes against sites in Yemen, resulting in 106 deaths and 314 injuries. And again, Yemen has been in a protracted famine that we caused. So, just adding to that.
The United States of America was bullied and embarrassed by terrorists. President Trump and his team are putting a stop to these threats in restoring American strength around the world.
Yeah.
The Trump peace through strength approach means no terrorist force will stop American commercial and naval vessels from freely sailing the waterways of the world. But unfortunately, this is not what the Democrats and the media want to talk about. They are focused on a coordinated campaign to try and sow chaos in this White House. And this has been the most successful first 2 months of any administration ever, which is exactly why they are doing this.
Trump compared himself recently to George Washington, by the way.
We are not going to bend in the face of this insincere outrage. And here's just one example of how bad faith the Democrats' criticisms are. Democrat Senator Mark Warner is hysterical over the use of Signal which is an approved decrypted app, and the killing of Houthi terrorists. But Senator Warner himself used Signal to work with a lobbyist for a Russian oligarch to connect with the disgraced Steele dossier author who started the Russia hoax, which Jeffrey Goldberg later reported on. How ironic. We're not going to lose focus of the bottom line, which is that Joe Biden's weakness enabled and emboldened Houthi terrorists, and President Trump's strength and resolve eliminated those terrorists.
I just want to get to the questions. She is such a dumb bitch. I fucking
Two
hate
questions,
her
if
so.
I may. One on Signal, one on the economy. Sure. On Signal, how comfortable is the president with what was shared so far now that the chain has been released?
The president's view on all of this remains the same today as it did yesterday. And I think it speaks volumes about the leadership of this president that he went directly to all of you, members of the press corps. He was asked, do you want someone else to go out and do a briefing? And he said, no, I will tackle this story. I will discuss it. The people need to hear from me.
We know this isn't true at all. He'd never heard of it. He'd never heard of the story. But when he was first asked, he went, I don't know anything about it. He was like, I don't know. So this is fucking insane rewriting. It's amazing. These people are at that level of like, who do you believe, me or your lying eyes?
About the situation, and so his thoughts on this remained the same today. He has
this soulless fucking cunt.
placed
I
great
fucking
trust
hate her.
in his national security team.
Awful human being.
And as for the usage of Signal, as the president said yesterday, as the CIA director has testified under oath, this is an approved app. It's an encrypted app. The Department of Defense, the Department of State, the CIA has it loaded onto government phones because it is the most secure and efficient way to communicate.
Yes. So here's the fun side of this. And they're going to continue doing this, right? It's loaded onto government phones. Yes. How many of you were not on your government phone? Most of you. Oh, okay. Well, then fucking whatever. Like again, they don't have a way to respond to this. They're trying. Dominant framing is being effective until it's not.
As for, again, the original situation in this messaging thread, the National Security Council, the White House counsel's office continues to look in to how this mistake, which the National Security Advisor has owned, occurred. And the president has ensured.
They announced that Elon Musk is going to help investigate how this mistake occurred. Because apparently they haven't quite figured it out yet. They haven't quite figured out how he was added to this Signal chat.
Sure, they are doing that.
On the economy, consumer confidence hit a 4-year low this month. Can you help explain to the American people how tariffs will help them in the long run?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm grateful for the question.
I love
The
these
American
people.
public
Sorry, we're
will
going to
hear
watch
later
this.
afternoon from the president directly on the
They're
topic
just the
of
worst.
tariffs. And as you all know, April 2nd day, President Trump has proudly dubbed it Liberation Day for our country. What he means by that is it will be a day where the United States of America will no longer be ripped off by nations around this world. It will be a day where Americans finally see free and fair trade practices restored. We are no longer going to allow our allies, our competitors, and our adversaries to
These are, again, they don't understand how business works, which is amazing. I don't know many people I would say are more lefty than myself. And I think a lot of leftists have a far better understanding of how global capitalism functions than these people. You got to be really stupid.
take advantage of American workers. And if you think about your hometown in the state that you grew up, Main Street looks a lot different today than it did many years ago. And President Trump wants to restore America as a manufacturing superpower around the globe. He wants products to be made right here in our great country.
He has no
with
idea
great,
how this shit
hardworking
works.
American hands that will ultimately result in higher wages and more money in the pockets of the American people. And he's also, in addition to tariffs, also determined to pass tax cuts later this year, as he did successfully in his first term.
And to mention, tariffs are a regressive tax that explicitly only really affect the poor and the consumer culture of people. They actually aren't charged to businesses. They're charged to businesses, but that business passes those things on. And if people buy things, they're the ones paying the tax. So if the business doesn't actually eat it, which they don't, then it's a regressive tax on the poor. So that's it. That's how these things work.
To put even more money back into the pockets of hardworking Americans. Peter.
Caroline, if I can ask you very quickly about the information we've seen, just to...
This is one of my favorite back and forths because she goes hard at him and he's just like,
set the predicate to all this. Has the president been briefed and physically seen he's seen all the details of the chat as printed by the Atlantic?
I just spoke to the president about it, yes.
Then let me ask you, if I can, very quickly. In the chat, Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, details F-18s, Tomahawks, so some of the weapons that were used. He details the timing involved for this, all of which occurred 31 minutes before, as he says, F-18s would launch. The DoD manual details classified information as significant military plans, saying that is secret, that's classified. So what about, there are no methods, there are no sources, but that's not what determines what's classified. So what is it about what Pete Hegseth wrote that makes you say this is not classified?
It's not just me saying that, Peter. It's the Secretary of Defense himself who is saying this as well. And he put out a very strong statement earlier today listing all of the things.
And he has no basis for it. That's what this guy's saying is like, you can't just say that shit's not classified. Like, there are rules around these things. There's automatic classifications of shit. There's a very good chance all that shit is actually automatically classified. So it's really hard to, like, this shit's difficult and complicated. And again, people spend an extraordinary amount of their lives when they're working for this bureaucracy to get these things in place. It's incredible.
That were not included in that message that he sent to the group. And again, this message, there was no classified information transmitted. There were no war plans discussed. Why did the Atlantic downgrade their allegation about war plans to attack plans? They're now playing word games because they know this was sensationalist spin from a reporter who is well known for doing this. We have said all along, no war plans were discussed, no classified material was sent. You have the Secretary of Defense saying that. You have the director of the CIA, the director of national intelligence, the FBI director, all testifying to that under oath, and they should be trusted with that.
To be clear, Americans can make the decision for themselves, but whether is the you said it's not war plans. Would you characterize these as military plans, military operation plans?
I would characterize this messaging thread as a policy discussion, a sensitive policy discussion, surely, amongst high-level cabinet officials and senior staff. And I'm so glad, Peter, that you said the American public can decide for themselves, because I think the American public should decide for themselves based on the outcome of this operation. And what happened in this operation? Terrorists that were allowed to run wild by the Biden administration were killed because of the direction and the determination of this president and his team. And this message also shows, this messaging thread also proved.
Just to mention, the messaging thread has its own purpose. You can't, how do you even rewrite that? This is a principals group for coordination on the Houthis over the next 72 hours. It's not a policy discussion. They're like, hey, bring in the people you need from the situation room for action items. Like, I love it. I love these people. They're fucking great.
That President Trump has an incredibly dynamic team who is working incredibly hard, flying all over the world to secure world peace and to fix up the foreign policy crises that the previous administration left for this team to inherit.
So to be clear, we all in this room and around the country would agree that we're glad no American service members were harmed, and we're glad that the mission was a success.
We're happy no one died, but is really what you're saying, like, that this wouldn't be... If this reporter had leaked his shit immediately and the Houthis would have run and fucked up this thing, that's what you required. Like, you require that the reporter actually does something that's actually pretty unethical and may cost American lives, because he doesn't know what else is there. He doesn't know if this stuff reveals that there's like people embedded amongst them, that it reveals information that only X person or Y person would know. Like, the reporter doesn't know dick, except, holy shit, these are war plans. And they're basically saying, look, if he had released these, we'd have a problem. And it's like, wait, because he wasn't a piece of shit immediately. Yes, apparently.
Stipulate that, but the president said that Pete Hegseth said none of this was classified. So given the president has seen it now, and given the president understands that significant military plans are deemed classified as secret, how does the president view none of this, which details times and weapons and more, as being not classified?
I've already been asked and answered this question. The president's thoughts on this remain the same today as they were yesterday,
on what basis,
as well as the Secretary of Defense. This question has been asked and answered. There was no classified material discussed. Jackie.
On what basis I was asking?
Go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you, Caroline. So why aren't
launch times on a mission strike classified? Again,
I like how the news is like, I just appreciate this. I just do. Like, this is just one of those things that just makes me kind of just like, are you kidding me? Like, the question, how are launch times in a strike not classified? Is such a fucking weird question.
Again, I would defer you to the Secretary of Defense's statement he put out this morning. There were various reasons he listed, things that were not included in that messaging thread that were not classified. And again, going back to the American public, do you trust the Secretary of Defense, who was nominated for this role, voted by the United States Senate into this role, who has served in combat, honorably served our nation in uniform? Or do you trust Jeffrey Goldberg, who is a registered Democrat and an anti...
I mean, she put stank on the berg there. Like, you want to talk about subtle anti-Semitism. That is what that is. Jeffrey Goldberg. Right?
In uniform, or do you trust Jeffrey Goldberg, who is a registered Democrat and an anti-Trump sensationalist reporter? This president and this national security team are putting our national security and the American people first. We are restoring American strength around the world, and the result.
And she only has one purpose. Like, that's the big deal here. She only has one purpose, and that is to respond to all of this stuff. Just overall, Marco Rubio gets called out on it. One sec. I want to make sure we get to...
Yeah, that's liberation. We pleasantly surprised, but it's going to make our country... And so, in terms of this, it's going to be very strong, and we'll have very strong policing as far as... It's ridiculous. So this is a very simple system, and the beauty of it, I think this blows it away. But this on April 2nd.
1 sec.
We're signing today. Expectations. We've hit them very hard, very successfully, and we're going to do it for a long time. We're going to keep it going for a while. I want to see that'll all take care of itself. That could take care of itself in 1 day, 2 days, or 1 week.
Of your term in office.
Oh, this is Elon's amazing. He's never asked with the mandate or the electric mandate or anything. Greatest business deals ever made.
God, I want to get to... Where is Hegseth? Did I miss him? God, I hope I didn't miss him. Trump spoke a couple times today, and they were wild conversations. They really were. Come on. We're going to get to Hegseth so we can just get that last bit. Wow, maybe I missed it. Did.
Never know about, but we have the privilege of seeing and understanding the courage and skill of what they do. I'm going to go see that for the next couple of days. We also have seen it on full display in what's been done to the Houthi terrorists and what they're trying to do to close freedom of navigation. So you see, under the Biden administration, we let our troops and our ships and both warships and commercial ships get shot at to no consequence. What does that look like? That looks like weakness. And what President Trump has said is peace through strength is back. We will reestablish deterrence. That's not acceptable. And our ongoing campaign against the Houthis has been devastatingly effective. Now, as I said to this group a couple of times on this trip now, as we move to the Indo-Pacific to do our job, which is what we're here to do, nobody's texting war plans. Well, I noticed this morning out came something that doesn't look like war plans. And as a matter of fact, they even changed the title to attack plans because they know it's not war plans. There's no units, no locations, no routes.
I mean, there are locations and there's routes and there's all of it is there. It's crazy.
No sources, no methods, no classified information. You know who sees war plans? I see them every single day. I looked at them this morning. It's like that admiral right there, Paparo, for the Indo-Pacific, or Eric Kurilla, our general in CENTCOM. They do attack plans and war plans, and thank God we have those leaders who do it and do it well, and our enemies know it. My job, as it said atop of that, everybody's seen it now, team update, is to provide updates in real time, general updates in real time, keep everybody informed. That's what I did. That's my job.
That's my job, is to tell everyone 3 or 4 hours in advance of where and when we're going to kill somebody on an insecure, like this is the dominant narrative. So to go back, this is the dominant narrative as it's set up. Okay. National security, check. Military and danger, confidentiality and trustability. These are the 3 things that are being harped on because the primacy of those who are sort of attacking and going on the attack are doing so in what they consider to be, and I think it's a fair sort of idea. They're attacking the strong man by saying he's not strong. They're attacking the military pros by saying they're not military pros. This is politics of resentment. I've said this a lot. It's a thing you'll see a lot. When you see, oh, we would have never used that I can't imagine I would ever do. That mentality is one of resentment. I would never use that. It's too insecure at this thing, but you don't have the power to use it or not because you're not there. Like, what the fuck? What do you have power over? What is the thing that can relate to you? The worry that they're putting in people's heads is that this just shows they're lackadaisical. They don't give a shit kind of thing. So that's the like top line dominant framing overall. Now, to do this right, we need to go through the stakeholders. Stakeholders come in a handful of very, very particular sets. And I'm going to kind of talk about a couple things that have, been realized over the course of a lot of these things. There's a change in how we're handling war now. This is really going to be a sad article to read, so just be prepared. This was from the 25th. This is yesterday. The White House is warning the week ahead will see an intensification of U.S. efforts to punish the Houthi rebels in Yemen, whose maritime terror has targeted vessels in the Red Sea since late 2024, seeking to paralyze merchant shipping in the strategically vital waterway. Under the Trump administration's new approach to combat, an intensification of military action will almost certainly bring a rising civilian death toll. That's due to a substantial shift at the Pentagon in the recent weeks since the arrival of America's new defense secretary, former Fox News anchor Pete Hegseth. This is, by the way, where a lot of these stories are going to come together. Hegseth, who is currently asking the public to weigh in on his plan to return the Department of Defense to its former name, the Department of War, if you didn't know, has previously defended U.S. troops accused of war crimes. Since heading the Pentagon, he has no record of public comments expressing concern over the loss of civilian lives during the continuing military operations. Indeed, one of his first acts in the office was to order the shutdown of Pentagon offices that engaged in civilian battlefield assessments, with plans to cut all positions worldwide that focus on the likely impact military action could have on civilian populations. Take that in for a moment. So, he wants the Department of War there, which again, I support that, but for the fact that it's an ironic choice, and I think it is more honest about it. So when we talk about the Department of Defense versus the Department of War being funded, makes the conversation, I think, better. So go for it, Hegseth. However, getting rid of everybody globally that gives a shit and that their job is literally to look at the civilian cost of any attacks. It's one of his first things he did. The Pentagon Civilian Harm Mitigation and Response Office was targeted for closure at the beginning of March. Pentagon regulations charged the office with assisting military commanders to, quote, exercise the leadership necessary to reduce the risk of harm to civilians and civilians' objects during military operations. The protection of civilians is fundamentally consistent with the effective, efficient, and decisive use of force, noted the office's founding documents. He is a horrible person. Also shuttered on Hegseth's orders, a Pentagon Civilian Protection Center of Excellence. In 2023, a declassified report called the office the hub and facilitator of learning and strategic approaches to help institutionalize good practices for civilian harm mitigation and response during operations. The New York Times estimated that around 160 Pentagon employees would lose their jobs as a result of the shift in priorities. Don't give a shit about those jobs. Not my first concern. Hegseth said his boss wanted to appear to favor a strike first, ask questions later approach to warfare. The defense secretary regularly talks about the importance of, quote, improving lethality, warfighting, and readiness, and has claimed that nothing should be permitted obstruct the Pentagon's central military mission. The authorities in Yemen say that as a result, they have witnessed an unacceptable civilian loss of life since the U.S. assault began in March, the first significant action globally since Hegseth's deprioritized collateral damage during America's military operations. In Sana'a, at least 53 civilians were killed and more than 101 wounded on the first night of airstrikes alone. Do you know what airstrikes those were? I can tell you what time they took place. "53 civilians, 101 wounded in that." And again, just to make a point. Excellent. Fist bump, flag, fire. Yep. Sure shot, hit the nail on the head. It's only homos who care about civilian deaths. We don't want to be that. We're real men. We're warriors. We're warriors. We're strong and big. We're big. We're big and strong. And we're big. We're big. Dad, are we big? This is fucking insane that we're having this conversation. That was just one night. In the intervening days, those numbers have risen, according to local leaders in Sana'a, to accuse the United States of war crimes. Actively war crimes. Do you know how we know it's war crimes? Because they talked about it. We had a positive idea of him walking into his girlfriend's building. Ha ha! We fucking killed her too, that bitch. Ha ha! That's what they did. Excellent. Good job, Pete. They're happy to kill civilians. They're actually happy. They probably jerk off over it. Pete Hegseth probably does that. You know, I believe he does. Makes sense. Americans should be ashamed, said Chris Van Hollen, a Democrat from Maryland who sits on the Foreign Relations Committee. He warned of an increased risk that U.S. weapons are deployed in a manner that undermines our interests and values, ultimately posing a greater threat to national security. Wow, someone understand. That's weird. Someone understanding how these things sort of work. Stop fear. It reminds me of the South Park episode about Pokemon and the Japanese. Yes, it is 100%. It's just like that. Horrifying. God. God damn it. Just God damn it. Ugh. So, here are, when we start talking about stakeholders, the thing for us to do when we talk about that is to remember stakeholder dynamics and institutional power come first. These are the big fucking questions. It's the first really important shit. So when we talk about these and we talk about exactly what that means, one sec. No, don't reload. Please go back to the same place I was at. Thank you. All right. Okay. We have, I think, the first thing we have in order to have this conversation at a very, very basic level is to talk about the odd dynamic of Trump. Yeah, I don't like it. We're going to erase you. Go a little bigger. I like that. So we have Trump at the top, but we don't have Trump alone. This is the power dynamics that are at play, because Trump is ultimately being pulled apart, and he kind of exists in what I would say are in between a handful of different people. In this case, we're not going through Trump's entire sort of nightmare life, because again, he sucks. But we kind of have, you're able to see it a little bit in here, but I want to say the true believers, the loyalists. And the loyalists actually are people directly surrounding him from mostly his first time in office. And so this would be Stephen Miller, the Jewish Nazi, which is awesome as a thing. I mean, you want to talk about a DEI hire, he's a Jewish Nazi. That's fucking amazing. It's wonderful. So we got Stephen Miller. We've got the chief of staff, whatever that, Susie Willis. Don't care. She's irrelevant generally, but Stephen Miller works for her. But we have like the loyalists. And in that, I think I would argue, we can put, come on. We can add in, I think, Mike. Yeah, Michael Waltz would be my other one I would add in there. If that makes sense to you guys. Mike Waltz would go in there because I think he's showing his colors in how this sort of is being set up, at least how I'm reading the situation. Let's see. Give me 2 seconds. Because I have a list of everyone who's in this, and it's kind of incredible when we start breaking it down. So other people that are in here, we have the Treasury Secretary, who's a Trump loyalist. We know Scott actually has that background, I think. Treasury Secretary, let's bounce. What is his deal as a thing? Yeah, he's Trump secretary. As far as I know, he's not that interesting for this, but he is in that sort of group. So Scott Bessent, we think, again, we're not certain any of this, but Scott Bessent is SB in the chat. Then we have Walker Barrett, who's the director at the National Security Council, heading defense issues. He's been a hardline sort of top level Republican, but he is working for Mike Waltz. He was deputy chief of staff to Mike Waltz before. I think Walker here is his chief of staff, senior director in some capacity. So we've got that side as well. So we've got Walker Barrett. This is just in the chat, by the way. These are not even counting people outside of the chat. Oh no. What are you doing? Stupid computer. All right. I don't think Hegseth is actually a loyalist, and I'm trying to figure out where he would kind of go. I'm just going to put him up here for now. It's going to be like a question mark area. Does that make sense? Like, so it'd be Pete. In this, I think we see he's not a Trump loyalist. Clearly, he's kind of wherever he needs to be. There's a good chance, as someone in the senatorial hearing today made the comment, he was probably drunk when this was going down anyway. So it's tough to sort of say, like, as a thing, like, if that makes sense. Yeah, but that's Pete. We have Jacob. I want to get to that in a second because Jacob, we don't know who Jacob is for sure. Think I know who Jacob is. Think I know, but we'll get to that. But Jacob's, no one's really talked about him quite at this point. Then we have Treasury of Steve, Dan Katz, who is chief of staff to Scott Bessent. And again, this is the Treasury. Why is the fucking Department of the Treasury? I actually don't understand why the Department of Treasury is in here. Yeah, sure, Sean, I'm with you. He's an opportunist just desperately trying to hold on a job amid alcoholism. Yeah, and basically he's a rapist probably. So he's there for the same reason Trump is, basically. As a thing. So again, I think this is like a gigantic what the fuck question, right? Like this is a huge what the fuck question. Why is this person here? Joe Kent and Tulsi Gabbard, I don't think are loyalists. I'm putting them in a different camp. And there's a reason for this. It's because one, Tulsi is absolutely, if there is like an opportunist camp, which I think is, I'm going to say opportunist here. I think there's other things around this. This also, by the way, is going to be, this is, I think, a larger group, but I'm going to say opportunist because it's Tulsi is in this. Without a question, she's in this. Tulsi Gabbard. With her is Joe Kent. Joe Kent is a hardline right-winger. Like, I don't think he's a loyalist to Trump. I really don't. I think he is a loyalist to like the insane right wing. We're gonna be having to look this up, but he is chief of staff effectively to Tulsi, and he is a huge piece of human garbage. 100%. We have the king of these guys, as far as I'm concerned. We're going to draw a little crown for him, and that is Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, and he's the Homeland Security Advisor for the White House. So he's been around for forever, and it's worth just mentioning. He, to me, is like the leader of this loyalist side of the factions. Then we have really weird shit happening where we have two Marco Rubios. I don't know how no one's jumped on this. I don't. If you have a phone and you have Signal, you sign up with your phone number and then it sends you a text. You go, cool. And then you can sign into it on any other device. And you just have to confirm it in that first device. You do that by logging into the device, scanning a QR code, whatever it is. There's no need to have two Signal accounts. Unless you have two devices that do not have access to each other. That is a weird thing. Like a really weird thing. And there's a lot of questions that need to be asked around this. Two Marco Rubios doesn't make sense to me. But Marco Rubio is also not a Trump loyalist. Marco goes with Tulsi squarely. Is someone pretending to be Rubio? I don't know if someone's pretending to be Rubio or Rubio has given access to someone else who shouldn't have access or that should have access, or he has a second phone that's copying messages out of Signal or a script for it. All of these things, by the way, are real. The idea of why he would have two accounts is very, very complicated as a thing. It is as a thing. With Marco, we have Needham. We'll just do it over here. This isn't about being pretty. This is about getting it out. So Needham is over here. Mike Needham. He's chief of staff to Rubio. Not that interesting. Radcliffe is a fascinating character. I don't actually know where to place him in this. Where he's going to go outside too. I am hesitant to say that he is a loyalist. I'm also hesitant to say he's an opportunist. I think he is part of a different thing happening. And the dynamic between him and Trump is very unique. It's very unique. We'll get to that. So here's Susie. Then I got Susie Wiles. I already got her. Tulsi. And then, of course, J.D. Vance, who goes for me over here. He is not a Trump loyalist. He will, as we saw in the chat, stab Trump in the back happily, make him look stupid, does not care at all. And then Steve Witkoff. And I would probably place Witkoff in the loyalist camp, but you know, we're going to have to do some lookup with that and find that out. So we have a couple names to set up very particularly. I can be convinced that Hegseth is over here, that he's opportunist. I can be convinced of that. Jacob, Radcliffe, Witkoff, and Marco Rubio is different. And Waltz also has, by the way, a second guy in there, which is Alex Wong. So this accounts for everyone who's in that group chat as a thing. Now, when you start breaking down their different setups, there are a handful of things that I sort of want to mention. Jacob, if you go through all of the nominees for anything, and let's say you talk about specifically, which would be part of this, the Secretary of State or a Deputy Secretary of State nominee, there is actually a Jacob. It's Jacob Hellberg. Okay? And I'm putting him over here, and I'll explain why. Because I think this is who Jacob is. And actually, because it's speculation. Again, no one knows quite what's going on with this shit fully, right? So, Jacob Hellberg. Jacob Hellberg is a senior advisor to the CEO of Palantir, Peter Thiel's big company. At one point, Trump was really excited to have a nominee as Deputy Secretary of State, this guy, Jacob Hellberg, who's gay. He's married to Keith Rabois, whatever we want to call him. He's one of the PayPal mafia, which is, I think, going to be really important to the story because he's one of the first founders of PayPal. Are you recognizing any of these words that I'm saying now and repeating them over and over? So Hellberg is the first. Hellberg's the only Jacob to be nominated for anything, and he specifically was nominated for Secretary of State position. And there's a Jacob in this chat. I am just making that. This is me as a theory. This is my red string, which I'm just going to I probably should make it very clear that this is bright red string. This is a big, I don't know, string everywhere. But it's a lot. This is a lot to me. So Hellberg is part of this anti-China, pro-Russia tech advocate thing. He's the guy who was against TikTok. He testified about it. When he married, ready for how fucked up this is? Like, it's hard for me not to think that there are two factions at war in the Trump presidency, three factions ultimately. But do you know who married him? Who actually officiated between him and Keith Rabois when they got married? Sam Altman. ChatGPT's Sam Altman was the officiant at their wedding. Oh. I don't know how, like, that's hardcore, right? Like, that's hardcore shit. When we start talking about a few of these other things, though, the setup for these guys, JD Vance and Jacob especially, are very much in this Thiel-aligned tech camp. Yeah, he was married by CEO Sam Altman. You can look that up. That's wild. When we start talking about these other people and how they're sort of set up, though, they don't really have connections in a lot of different ways, right? That's not really what they're set up to do. That's not really how they're playing out. Ugh, God, I need to sleep better. Got a little stitch in my lung. That's no good. Like a child. So John Ratcliffe, for example, doesn't really have a lot of ties in these ways. Susie Wiles, these people are Trump loyalists necessarily. There are no connections to anyone in the PayPal mafia. However, these people all have connections to the PayPal mafia in one way or another. So the opportunists kind of have a big play here. And Jacob being in there is kind of wild as a thing. Again, Undersecretary of State nominee, I don't know another Jacob. You're free to tell me who else it could be. But then you have your Trump loyalists, and then you have what I would say, and there's kind of a line in here, and it's kind of fascinating because when we talk about loyalists and how that works, I don't think it's maybe as clean cut as I'm playing it here. So for example, Stephen Miller is straight up there for Trump, right? Susie Wiles, absolutely there for Trump as a person. But like Waltz, I actually would be hesitant to say he's there for Trump in a loyalist perspective for Trump's sake. Instead, how I kind of look at what Waltz is he's more of a professional military guy, private sector, public sector, whatever it is. These are people who are like aligned with a national security objective or a pretend ideology as a thing. Like they're in an interesting spot, right? So this overall setup kind of puts us in some really odd places. So there's these kinds of battles and these kinds of sides as we're talking about it. We have clearly in the text, here's what we know we have. We have, I'm just going to, I'll just select all of these things. Oh, no, I'm going to actually try to lock you down. Shrink you down. This works generally. So what we know we have and what we saw when we looked through it is we had a really weird and particular interaction with J.D. Vance, where J.D. Vance exerted what I would call like a negative pressure. Oh, I don't know, a symbol for negative pressure. He exerted a negative pressure towards Trump. This is what we saw. It was a negative pressure overall as a thing. Nightbot is annoying the shit out of me today. Those are okay. I'm okay with it for right now. So the negative pressure is being exerted against Trump. And what happened is you actually got to witness, in the way I sort of look at this, you got to witness almost immediately. You got to see Kent move that direction towards JD, towards that camp. And you got to see Hegseth do the same, make that way and push towards that. At which point we then witnessed Mike Waltz place significant pressure the other direction, to the point where he inserted Stephen Miller, who capped it and closed it. And then we saw immediately Hegseth bitch out, because he is a bitch, and go that direction. This is the kind of dynamic and power dynamic we actually witnessed in this as a thing back and forth. And we don't care about reasons. We're not here to psychoanalyze. We're here to just talk about exactly the pressures and the forces that they were sort of playing with. Because Trump as a thing exists for himself. I want to just say this sort of more plainly. Trump is here for ego. He doesn't have an ideological reason to be here. No one does. This is a bullshit thing. J.D. Vance is trying to position himself to have more power inside of not just this presidency, but to enable himself to usurp that power at some point. Whether or not Trump runs again, we know that someone else is going to be trying to. And that is J.D. At this point, he's trying to position himself there. Mike Pence never did this. Mike Pence never inserted himself in that position. So he's trying to rally people. And we saw people side with him until Mike Waltz corrected. Now this back and forth, this isn't totalized. This isn't the end of it. But these are the people who are immediately directly involved in that interplay. And then what we saw when we had the next sort of step come into this, and again, I'm sort of drawing time, so you're going to have to kind of think through this in terms of like how time works. Because we had this sort of interaction in the text. But around this whole thing, we had our new friend, Jeffrey Goldberg. And Jeffrey Goldberg and everything was around here. And he was watching this. Right? And Jeffrey Goldberg has a whole bunch of different sort of things that he is. Trump can't run again, stupid. You're very cute, James. Trump can't do any of the stuff he's doing. That doesn't matter. Like, what if I could talk? He can't run again. Don't you know that the laws are the laws? Laws are real things. So Jeffrey Goldberg is watching all of this, and immediately, there's no doubt, he immediately shares it with The Atlantic. And there is immediate crossover with Jeffrey sort of at the middle of this. Okay. So The Atlantic magazine plays out, and they do their thing. If you don't know who that is, by the way, Atlantic magazine is owned by Steve Jobs' widow. her holding company of his wealth. So this is like Cali East Coast West. This is Cali West Coast tech money. Okay. Let's see. Do we know anyone else in this who is involved with tech money, by the way? What childish bullshit. Really, James? Really, James? I like you. You're fun. Yes, Big Aaron, the courts have told Trump he can't do many things that he has continued to just do anyway. Best friend of Ghislaine, well, sure shot. I am going to request articles. I'm going to request articles on that. Phew. Going to request articles on that. But what they are for sure is, and all of them across the board, they're all, this is the connection. So we have the Atlantic Magazine, which is ultimately this, and there's no way that they didn't bring in their ownership on this question, especially given the political setup today, right? The Atlantic sucks. Yeah, the Atlantic sucks. I don't give a shit. Like, we're not here to judge whether or not they're good or failing or anything. They are, like everything else, powered by the forces behind them, and that is it. That's the end of it as a thing. So the Atlantic Magazine, with its own sort of tech connections, they go through the process and they end up releasing the article. The article goes out and immediately we see it attached to all the liberal sort of dim, really the war hawk types, and also the news media. And it kind of gets split between two groups. I'm going to call them the Emmas because I love Majority Report. I really do. And I really think the people there are great. Michael Brooks was the best, not just because of his last name, but I really think Sam and Emma and everyone do a lot of really good work. But the Emmas of all of this on half, and then the other half I will say is the MSNBCs. And here's the reason for it. And this would be like the Hillary types. And I'll tell you why I'm classifying this in this way. So on the MSNBC side, the Hillary types, this is war hawks. These are Democrat war hawks, which are a thing. Biden was one, Hillary was one, Obama was one. This is not an uncommon sort of reality for these people to be in. Their immediate investments personally are in the same things they've always been. They are actually really up for killing Houthis. They really are. They're not really caring about civilians. They don't give a shit about any of this. The thing they care about is actually the actual hegemony and control of the situation. That's what they care about. That's what they're invested in. And control of the situation means intelligence community security. So their investments are directly in the security industrial complex. Now, do you know one of the bigger companies involved in the security industrial complex? Just as an idea. Here, I'll share it with you. If you haven't seen it, it's okay. Not everyone has. It is in theory loading. It is not a very efficient site. This is Palantir. Oops, someone joined the Discord. And I'm hearing everything through you, Ben. Ben, you got to mute yourself. Palantir is a big data scraping thing. They are about security. They are about military prowess. They're about military capabilities. And they want every contract they can get from the U.S. government. Okay? Does this make sense so far? Right? As a thing? One sec. So when we talk about, like at a basic level, when we talk about this idea of the security industrial defense complex that sort of exists, we have to be very, very aware that through all of this, oops, change pens again. Why do I do that? Through all of this, as a thing, there is Palantir. The Atlantic, the Atlantic is an old head blanc political sort of group. It's kind of hard to talk about this in terms of modern media, because the way that modern media sort of works is you have a lot more soft connections with social media. At best, you have, the Wendy's mascot making a comment on Assassin's Creed, that kind of stuff. You don't see a lot of these things in the old way. But the way that the Atlantic sort of worked was it used to have councils, it used to have setups, it used to have a whole bunch of things that it sort of was tied up with together. And the way that these things sort of interoperate and how they sort of come together and how these people know each other, this is a really big tie together, because the tech money that exists inside of this woman's setup, the money behind Atlantic Magazine, it's tied up in this. These people are all tied together. I know she has no editorial control at the Atlantic, Yo-Yo. You're very odd. James, you do realize that Trump has already said he's going to try to run for a third term, and there's already people trying to, I'm not going to have this argument with you. You're very, very strange. But the idea that you believe that laws make any matter to this president, I think I'm going to go ahead and pass on having you post more. Enjoy yourself. You can take a break for the day. So the setup and the interests that are at sort of everything here, the way that they're set up, the way that they're tied together, the way that these things sort of work, touch in a huge way. And this is not red texting. This is just the nature of Silicon Valley and how they're tied together. If you're not aware, Palantir and all of these things, and Uber and all these companies, they're tied together with really a handful of investors that are constantly moving amongst them or investing amongst them. There's a reason that, for example, A16Z, which is the Andreessen Horowitz investment vehicle for a lot of stuff, including crypto and other things, are bringing people on board. Like they brought in the subway choker, the guy who killed the guy in the subway, that conservatives lauded, and they give him his own office, even though he's never been in stock broking. He's never been a partner. He doesn't have any idea about anything. They just did that to make Trump happier. Like, that's the thing. Yeah. I didn't even mention, Congress recently changed the way that time works, and they changed it so that the next year actually only counts as 4 days legally. If you didn't know, that happened. That's not like a joke. They did this. Like we live in a stupid timeline. But the way these things are all tied together, you end up in kind of a handful of camps. And these camps are very much working against other camps. Because on the other side of this, there's a very different thing sort of taking place. And I'm not talking about, we'll get to Emma's thing in a second. Because these guys are tied together under Palantir. Palantir is a real thing. And again, Jacob Hellberg, let's, Jacob Hellberg. This is Jacob. No, come on. Where's the link? Come on. What in the world? Here it is. We'll just jump right to a LinkedIn page because I like doing that. Why not? This is Jacob Hellberg, U.S. Secretary of State designate. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. This is why I think he's the guy, by the way, though. I think he's Jacob. But we'll just go down here and we'll go, oh, what does he do for a living? Wow, what does he do? Oh, he's a fellow at Palantir and senior advisor to the CEO at Palantir. That's fun.
Hello.
Hey, Marcellus, how you doing?
How are we doing, Brooks?
Doing good. Slowly going through this nightmare of interweaving nightmares, to be frank. So enjoy. So Palantir as a thing is like tied into this because Peter Thiel is tied into this. If you're not aware, and this is one of those really, really fascinating sides of all of this. When you start talking about this dude right here, JD Vance, he is 100% a Thiel designate. Same with this. This guy, not so much. You start running into like this in-between thing, right? So when we start talking about like what are the powers at work here and what is the setup, this cannot be ignored in my eyes. This entire side of it, which is these really weird connections and the way that ultimately only a handful of companies that own these things are tied together. Again, Silicon Valley is a tiny, incestuous little nightmare town. Just is. Then the left, yeah, go for it. What's up?
What is in the red, like the area on the red that you mark? Like,
one second. Let me make sure that, let me make sure they can hear you. 1 second. I may not have Discord in here. I do not have, wait, is Discord not in here?
Yeah, I think there's a problem with Windows 11. Sorry.
No. 2 seconds. I just need to. All right. Go ahead and talk, actually, real quick.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2,
Perfectly.
3.
Thank you. All right. Go ahead. You were asking.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Like, could you zoom out?
Yes.
Zoom out? Okay. Perfect. So what's this? The red, like, what is this? Like,
all right.
red.
So all of this is going through the story of this and trying to map out stakeholders and the power dynamics, the institutional power behind it, where financial beneficiaries exist around this, regulatory relationships that exist, and key decision makers. We're trying to go through and map all of the relationships that exist in this, specifically around Trump, which is this entire text chain is about Trump and the people immediately around him. We have a handful of people that I think I put, and again, anyone's free to edit this, but I put in the opportunist camp, which tends to be a lot of centered people who are really near Peter Thiel. And then you've got kind of the Trump loyalists on the other side, which I would say Elon Musk is kind of a third wheel inside of that. And so you kind of have in the battle of the text, you can see the power dynamics of them pushing back and forth, I think, pretty regularly.
I think, Brooks, you have to put Elon Musk as an asset for the he's just an asset for the administration.
I don't believe that's the case. And see this is why it's important to talk about the power dynamics, because all of these people that are wrapped around Thiel, do you want to do a history lesson about Elon Musk? Do you know Elon Musk's story? It's actually really. Do you know it?
A little bit.
So
you know?
let's do it.
Let's learn. I'm willing to learn.
All right.
You know?
So here's Elon Musk's story. Elon Musk created a company called Zip2. And he did this in the early days of internet boomery, like 96, 95 timeframe, where any asshole with a computer could pretend like they have an internet company. What is it that Zip2 did? A lot of people think, because they presume as a thing, zip, that means zip drive. It must be a compression company. No, Zip2 was a way for was guides to restaurants. One sec. One sec. Let's I'm gonna switch back to whiteboard view. Let's actually go through this. Musk Zip 2. So he's just the fucking worst. Like, what a scam artist. All right. He got the initial business idea for a summer internship in '94. A Yellow Pages salesman came into his employer's office to pitch buying an online business listing in addition to the traditional listing in the Yellow Pages book. And when the internet was first going, the Yellow Pages was like, hey, we're also going to do an online listing for you. Global Link Information Network Incorporated was incorporated in '95 by Elon and Kimball Musk and Greg Kuro. All of these people at this time, by the way, illegally working here. Didn't have visas to work here, just mentioning. They weren't citizens yet either. They raised money from a small group of angels, plus 8,000 from Corey. It's claimed that Errol Musk provided the brothers with 28,000. Musk denies this, doesn't matter. Now, Global Link provided local businesses with an internet presence by linking their services to searchers and providing directions. So in Palo Alto, only Palo Alto, there was this thing called the Navtech database where like you could go and it would like early MapQuest type stuff, right? And this was a free database because it was a tech area. So they did this very early there. And so he added that with directions to go places. Nightbot is, one sec. Nightbot's being a jackass. Let's see, what was the deleted message for you, good Garros? Oh no, we're gonna try Nightbot. God damn it. Sorry. Just hold on for 2 seconds, everyone. I'm just gonna try to see if I can get Nightbot to fuck off. Because I had chat moderation turned off. Why did it turn back on? What in the fuck? I have mods in here. I don't need fucking Nightbot to do shit. Apologies, Gingaros. That was not intentional. All right, you should be fine now. And Nightbot, fuck off. So this is what it did. It was basically just, hey, your business, you give us money, and if people go to this search engine, this search thing, there wasn't even a search engine, they go to this website, they'll be able to find a way to your business. Which is not even a business. This isn't even an internet company as a thing. There's not even a system in here. It's nothing. It is a nothing thing. He combined free Navtech database with Palo Alto business databases to create the first system. Public available stuff he combined that he wasn't the first to do. So they got $3 million of investments and they changed their name to Zip2. Davidow Ventures changed the fundamental strategy of Zip2 from localized direct-to-business sales to instead selling national back-end software packages to newspapers to build their own directories. Elon Musk was appointed Chief Technology Officer. Sorkin joined We Power the Press as its official slogan. They had deals with New York Times, Knight Ridder, Hearst Corporation, and it was the U.S. newspaper industry's response to online city guide industry. There's a reason you've never heard of this company, by the way. They had 160 newspapers they worked with to develop city guides locally or at full scale. Did they really have one? I don't know. You're free to go look at all that. There was a calendar and an online directory that could be added to their websites. Zip2 allowed for two-way communication. That's great. An auto guide, all this stuff. Zip2 was merged with CitySearch, its main competitor. While Elon Musk attemptedly supported it, he persuaded the boards not to proceed, and at some point, Compaq Computer bought Zip2 outright to add it to Alta Vista, their search engine. So this is how Elon Musk got his big bag of money. Okay? Yeah. Now, the conversation from there then moves directly into PayPal. And this is where everything kind of becomes, everything becomes kind of a huge deal, actually. Because this is, the next thing he does is he founds X.com. Yes, I mean, back then. He founded X.com a long time ago, 99 with Ed Hill, Harris Fricker, and Christopher Payne. It merged with Confinity in 2000. So barely existed at all as a company before it was merged. Okay. Confinity is PayPal. Confinity's PayPal. So the original idea, X.com developed and operated a financial services website with banking services provided by First Western National Bank. So they found a bank in La Jara, Colorado, that would allow financial services for that bank. And that's it. That's it. It was online services for that bank. Okay. These are the big deals he's done. So when PayPal came out and they sort of switched it, when X got merged, the new company took PayPal's name. Musk was its biggest shareholder, appointed CEO. Started in 1988, PayPal enabled users with Palm Pilots. PayPal Palm Pilot was the idea to send money to each other through the device's infrared ports. That's how it began. It was originally for Palm Pilots. PayPal then allowed users to send money using emails on the web, skirting banking regulations and being a bank and completely doing illegal shit the entirety of its formation, because that's how this works. In September 2000, when Musk was in Australia for a honeymoon trip, the X board voted for a change from Musk to Thiel, the co-founder of Confinity, due to mismanagement by Musk. In June of 2001, X.com was changed to PayPal.com. This is the famous moment. And here's why it matters. Because we use the term PayPal Mafia. Do you know why we use that term? Because there's a famous photo. This is not, I want the photo full size. There's a very famous photo that was on the cover of Wired, I want to say. And this thing right here, we want to, come on, just open the image full screen. This is the PayPal Mafia. Now, the circles weren't in the original. This was a newspaper, this was a magazine cover. It was part of their big shoot, the PayPal Mafia. Do you recognize anyone missing from this?
Jeff Bezos.
No. How about Elon Musk?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Elon Musk isn't in here. Peter Thiel, who's number 8, by the way, he's there. Robois, who I was talking about a little bit earlier, who's married to Jacob Hellberg. He's number 9 right here. This is the PayPal Mafia. They unironically posed for this. Correct. They unironically posed for this and called themselves the PayPal Mafia, and they began calling themselves. And people have since, because when eBay bought PayPal, all of these people became billionaires. And they began being able to have more money than God, and they could basically control everything that was invested anywhere. They were the big investments in Silicon Valley. Now, Musk is the left out member of this. He's still got a fuck ton of money from selling PayPal. Again, not for doing anything. The company he owned didn't add anything to PayPal. They didn't bring any tech, nothing. They had X.com was not useful to them. And he was a terrible CEO that they ended up having to fire because he didn't want to go the direction they did. They actually made the right calls. I mean, yeah. But Elon Musk sucks and just got a bunch of money for being in the right place at the right time. Not for anything he actually built ever. It's amazing that way. It's amazing that way.
Yeah.
And from there, because he had more money than God, he started moving into other investments. But so did Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel and the PayPal Mafia at large work together on a lot of stuff. And they tend to work counter Musk. And they do things in collision with each other quite often. For example, when Robois married Jacob, they were wed and officiated by Sam Altman, who's founder of OpenAI, or the CEO of OpenAI, who Elon really fucking hates, by the way, if you didn't know. Like, he's a rival to Elon, certainly. So these people are at loggerheads kind of constantly. And so where these guys and all of these people made just a fucking insane amount of cash. Insane amount of cash. They're everywhere. And Musk and sort of became his own thing and his own sort of setup. He tried to go like the Steve Jobs route, but of course, without actually having founded a company or building one up. So that thing that he did is very different, but they're constantly at each other's throats. And so when we talk about kind of what is the setup here and how we're talking about it, we are seeing a lot of connections to Palantir, information security, and other things that very much, by the way, the liberal democratic order, the Hillary Clintons of the world, love Palantir. They love the idea of privatizing military, like security and all that. They have no issue with this. They're at odds with Trump, who's being led by Musk, and Musk wants to control all of these things himself. That's why Musk being in charge of this leak is actually really fascinating, because the leak, by having JD Vance and all these other people involved, and really being pushed by people who are connected significantly to Palantir, you have cross purposes, I think would be the way to phrase it. Does that make sense as I'm saying it? Or did you leave the Discord? Oh, you're still there. Marcelo.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense.
So
Brooks.
it's really fascinating. So these are, this is the setup, and I'm only going to go for like another 15 minutes. So I'm going to burn through a little bit more here, because the goal is, and I'm going to kind of talk through how we're going to do it this time, because I want to try to get as much as I can into this doc in the next 24 hours ish before Friday, because Friday I want to actually see if we can actually fill this out completely. So if you're watching this and you're interested in the Discord, discord.gg/DGQC, you go right down to no elephants project. And you will see, I'll even make sure that I sticky it in there. You'll see a Miro board. I think I already have stickied it, but we're going to double sticky. That's fine. Pinned message. You'll see a board called Lakoff framing. And actually, I'm going to change this. We're going to change this to I'm going to call it the, this is not an elephant project. And we're actually going to add my cool, I thought it was a cool image, so we're going to add it back in. But one moment. You were going to say something? No?
I'm asking I don't know, Peter Thiel, he published 2 books, right?
Peter
and
Thiel's,
it's kind of
yeah.
And what scared me is that we first of all, like, he's like us, but like I don't buy that he's an intelligent, right? Like that's a representation that I don't buy it, right? Like he's kind of, maybe there is some people who kind of like helping him doing this kind of shit, right? Doing this kind of thing, right? So
yes.
We don't have to think like the billionaire who's, we live in this culture where this representation, Brooks, right? This is bother me, right? Like this billionaire who's like very intelligent, right? Like he's very kind of like even among his peers or enemies, right? It's a politics of resentment, and we should not do that, right? Or I like. Thank you for, by the way, thank you for like the sketch, right? Because I didn't know that Peter Thiel has the mafia PayPal, right? I didn't know that.
The PayPal mafia is fascinating. And again, when we start talking about how these things are in, you got to remember Moldbug and all these others that are in like this hyper technocracy that is not quite what Musk wants, by the way. And you'll see that line. But like JD Vance and a lot of these people are very much in his camp, and the way that they're working and the way that these people really PayPal itself is splitting so much of our world apart right now. And you're seeing a lot more of an outright political move and power struggle that is directly aligned with corporate interest in particular ways, and investor interest, not even corporate interest. The level above that, capitalist interest directly, is, I think, really powerful. I popped the link directly into the Discord for the Discord. If you want to go right to the No Elephants Project, I popped it into the chat. So this is my first place. So let me finish really quick and talk about Emma, who I just want to make sure, like, this is not, again, me shitting on Emma. This is not my thing. Not for this. Sometimes it is, but not for this. One of the things that we're seeing a lot of, and it is when we talk about resentment, it's really important as we're doing this that you keep an eye out for not only resentment within yourself, just do, but also messaging that is that. We had earlier, for example, and this is going to be Emma and Hassan, I would say. But I think Vosh, like what I would call the online reactionary left, which is kind of a larger group, their anger is actually at Jeffrey Goldberg for not releasing it all quicker. Why did you wait? Oh, this is proof that you're in line with X or that you're part of this. The conversation for them is completely taken over by resentment and anger at the journalist, which is weird. So their anger is like, look at how hypocritical, and that's the number one thing, is hypocrisy. And then the second is bad journalism. And neither of these are critiques. Hypocrisy is, who cares? Everyone's a hypocrite. Like, who cares? You're talking about American politics. It's a space of hypocrisy. It's wild. Power Surg 1, I need an article on that because I know it's true, but I don't want to say it unless I can back it real quick. The other half is bad journalism, which I'm very hesitant to agree is the case here. So we kind of have what's being reported on in what I would say the populist space. How to put it? The popular movement online, which I think exists. It's not just a leftist thing. I think there is just a general frustration. And I think it's not just them, it's hypocrisy. The people on the popular left and the popular right are both playing with this. And they're joining in, and they're all shitting on and doing the bad journalism thing. You're seeing this, because this is, if we extend this out and we do this again with Fox, what are they doing? Oh, look, it's the same fucking thing. They're talking about hypocrisy and the bad journalist. Like, we just watched it. And this is all Emma and Hassan and everyone are doing, is these are their two things. Look at how hypocritical it is, but they're not extending the conversation beyond this. They are, like, the reason I kind of, and I'm going to use a larger, they are blocked in. Like, these are dead end conversations. It's the reason that Fox's defenses are not going to land, is because they are just kind of shouting at the moon, tilting at windmills, whatever phrasing you want to use. That's what all of these people have in common. Fox, OAN was doing this. I saw the other day too, earlier today. That's it. These are dead conversations. They don't go anywhere. Calling people a hypocrite doesn't do anything, doesn't arouse anyone's passions, doesn't get people moving. There's no interest there. Because saying that he's a bad journalist depresses the story, if anything, depresses people's ability to invest in it. Angry old man yells at cloud. Thank you. That is exactly what I was aiming for. That's what I'm going to go with. See, now that's funny. I can go with that one. And so that's funny. But we'll go with the original. No, I don't want the meme version. I want to just, thank you. God, everything's terrible now. I'm an old man yelling at the clouds. But that's what they're doing, is they are old man yelling at cloud. Spot on. Great way to put it. So it goes nowhere. On the other side of this, and it's a really interesting thing, is this actually will go somewhere. All of this, and I would say all of this. And this goes in one specific place. This goes to private sector contracts. If you don't think where this is heading, with everything all of these people are saying, is ultimately that company X, and it very well may be X, by the way, X.com, SpaceX, it's someone, one of two groups really. If you don't think this ends with this being the conversation and their solution, you're wrong. This is the road it's going down, and it'll be there in 2 months, maybe a month. Trump, they love privatizing. They want to do that as much as possible. So they don't want signal. All right, fine. We're going to have company X handle all of our defense communications from now on. Even if it's on private phones, we're going to ensure it's safe, and we're going to pay them a big boatload of money. That's all that this does. And by the way, this also filters into this. So this is the direction we are currently heading as a thing. Right? This is where we're currently heading. But we're only 2 days in. And if we remember the timeline from another story, remember this? This took a month to harden. At least, maybe 2. It's done. We're not fixing this. When we could come up with these stories and all these, we're not moving the needle on shit. But this people are grasping for. There is confusion. And that is the thing that we latch onto. I will say it again, and I'm just going to, just because it's worth going. So all of you know it, and all of you hear it. We are in a state of confusion. Our country, our globe, wherever you live, you are terrified. Xi Jinping is confused. Like, no one knows what's happening. That is the space that people who are capable take advantage of. Vladimir Putin was a mid-level KGB fucking scrub. He just was. He wasn't even that interesting. There's a great book on Putin that details his whole life. I really, really suggest it. I can't remember the name of it. It's just called Putin. Phenomenal read on the entire thing. But he was a mid-level guy. And then the U.S. cooed Boris Yeltsin and chaos. And what happened in chaos? People acted. Because people are always acting. And as people act, as you throw dust into the air, it settles. And it doesn't settle randomly. The biggest pieces settle first, other pieces settle around them as they collide with it. And the way things settle is with that. And it takes time. And if you are in the right position, and if you're in the right place, and if you're aware of how these things are moving, you can adjust them slightly. It's the best that any of us can hope for. And we're there. This is the beginning of that. Changing that conversation and shifting that is the big deal. These are the stakeholders. I want you to come in and I want you to fill out the rest of this for stakeholders. Then I'm going to spend tomorrow night, I'm going to be back streaming again for this. We're going to spend time talking about the shared experience and what is the universal elements that are in these things. And I can do a couple pretty easily. I think we all can, but if you have a thing to yell out, don't hesitate, because this is the point. But if we talk about this and we go, hey, what are the universal themes? Well, the biggest is security, obviously. But there's more. There's, with this and with all of this, security is tied to things. Security is tied to uncertainty. Right? So if uncertainty comes out when things are insecure, the uncertainty is what you're trying to solve, what you're trying to put to rest. And if we are in a place where we don't know who's in what chat or what chat's happening, and no one does, and that's key here, no one does. Trump doesn't know. No one knows what's happening because there's no way to track any of this. This is not like, oh, they're having secret government conversations. No. This is wholly unknown. This isn't a matter of security, I don't think. It's a matter of uncertainty. And it's uncertainty of what those above us know. And we're going to chase this down because this is the thread that matters. When we have leadership, when you have someone in charge, and this is true of a workplace, this is true of a parent, this is the way hierarchy operates. What is built in and invested in that? It's certainty. The reason you allow people to be in charge of you is because they, you believe, will do best. This is true of socialist communism. Because you, in your democratized shop, where everyone votes for everyone who's in management, managers are still managers. When you vote for a manager, you still got to obey them. And it's not obedience, but their job is to manage. And when you set up things in that way, you'll trust it. If you've ever been part of a project where everyone's doing their best part and everyone's equal, that's how it works. You listen to the people who know things. When you're in a kitchen, the chef is in charge, but you have to be, the chef will obey anyone. If you are like, something's on fire, this is going, whatever it is, I need your help, everyone jumps, because that is the way the structure works. Uncertainty in this case is detrimental to Trump, because uncertainty is not ours. It has nothing to do with mine. Okay? This is not what the point is. Here's the thing. Trump has zero knowledge of any of this. That's not a small thing for us to poke at. And it's not a small thing for us to all be scared of. Because no matter what, if you think he's a huge piece of shit, I do. The bonus of the strong man, the one bonus of the strong man, or the father, or the boss, who is that, is ostensibly they're in control. But if they have zero knowledge of anything, and they don't, we know he doesn't, he has no knowledge, then uncertainty wins. And he has no way of having knowledge at all. They're actively using, to again, just to say, signal with 1 week destruction, untraced, untraceable. This is the system that everyone in the Trump administration and all leadership of the military and intelligence are using right now. There is no way for Stephen Miller to have known that conversation was happening unless he was invited to that group. And he had to be invited to that group by people who wanted him to be invited to that group. This is the thread to pull, in my eyes. That's the thread to pull in my eyes. Because this is terrifying. This is terrifying to everybody. Because he has, and I think this is a big one. I think this is a big shared universal thing, personally. Another personal, yeah, please.
I don't know. That's my speculation, but I maybe
Please.
I'm wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe like there is the people who invite him, right? That's speculation. Maybe I'm totally wrong, right? But maybe there is people in the military who invite him, like who has military positions.
You mean invited the reporter?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I can tell you right now that there is effectively no chance this reporter was invited knowingly. There's that it is of course possible in that way that anything is, so possible is a stupid thing to talk about. The reality is that the reporter himself wrote about convincingly how stunned he was to be included in this. He never was called by this other guy. He was placed into it by a person who absolutely fell on his sword and said that I did it. It was my mistake. I shouldn't have done it. That mentality is not something that gets done in these circles. Like, we know who invited him, and the reporter outed who invited him in the chats he released early on too. So I know that that's running around, but why is that running? Why is that the thing? Oh, maybe internally, because everyone wants to think, like, again, this is why I think this is the universal thing. The people in charge, they know they can do everything. They can do it all. Did you watch ContraPoints? I almost feel like I should do it. I want to do like a response to ContraPoints where I just build on it, because I actually thought the whole video was excellent. But it's about how people get into this weird place of it's easier to think that this guy intentionally invited this reporter than to realize that everyone is fucking stupid. And that's the end of the conversation. Because when the idea that all these people who are in charge of the largest military surveillance state, monetary system, purchasing system, bureaucracy in the planet, there's nothing, by the way, the US wins everything except for like raw people. Like it's the biggest everything by leaps and bounds. And all the people who are in charge of it are effectively useless and mentally fucked up. And they're all crap at what they do. And that uncertainty, I'm just going to keep saying that's the deal for me. I keep coming back to it because that is terrifying. It's so terrifying that I'm seeing people on the left go, well, what if it was intentional? What if all of this is like a power play? And it's like, no, what if actually no one knows what anyone else is doing at any given time? And all of these people are just trying to figure it out ad hoc. That sucks.
So Brooks, like, Marx was right. They doing it, but they don't know that they doing it.
Yeah. This is the line. I did a video on the capitalist cuckold that Trump is to Elon at this point. I highly suggest go watch it. It has one of my favorite sound bits I've ever made that everyone hates. But the way that works is when people are in positions where they are being moved about by the forces of like the system itself, it's incredibly difficult not to just do the thing, because you just presume you're doing the thing you want to be doing. Like you're just going. So you don't know what you're doing. It's not the same thing as it's not even the same thing as when you're like a worker in a factory and it's like, okay, what do I do? All right, well here, learn to do these things and do these, and you repeat them and do them over time. They don't have that. There's no lessons on how to use any like signal lessons. It's not a thing. Hey, by the way, don't invite random reporters to signal groups. And by the way, double check who you send to it. They don't even double check. Like they just
there's
are.
No directionalities. There's no that. I worked in bureaucratic in Libya. Like I worked there, right? There's a hints, right? Like they say something.
Yep.
You know. Yeah. Like it's kind of like.
I didn't include it. I feel like I fucked up here. Let's talk about one last thing here, which is in this little graph. I should have marked it. This is on me. And we are going to go here, and we're going to go, who did it? Who invited it? Was Mike Waltz. Mike Waltz invited our friend, the reporter. And I don't believe did it accidentally. I mean, I do believe did it accidentally. God damn, the opposite. You people fucking with me. I believe it was completely accidental. And that no one said anything is stunning. Because it also means, and that's the other thing that's sort of in here, is, and I forgot to do this. I'm so glad I'm going back. There's another thing, again, to go into the uncertainty, but there's this other thing. Clearly, these groups don't know who's in them. Right? Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, this is, so who's the, who's that? JG. Do you know who JG? I don't know who JG is. Is he I don't know. Oh, fuck. I can tell you, I've been in group chats. I've been in email threads at companies that had far less on the line than this shit. And when someone's added to it who's not supposed to be, or you don't recognize a name, you ask someone like, hey, you write them separately. You go, hey, Mike, did you mean to invite JG? I don't recognize who that is. You do that because you know that, hey, this is private. It's between us. But when you don't know who is supposed to be there, because Trump is in charge ultimately, and he can add anyone to anything. And if he said to Michael Waltz, add JG, no one can question that to Mike Waltz even. No one can do that. So this big question mark is not really, oh, I don't know what's there, but the fact that nobody knows. These people, every one of these people to a person, should have asked outside of it, hey, who the fuck is JG? And then going back to Mike Waltz and being like, hey, dude, did you mean to invite this person? No one did that. No one did that. And there is no, in the Trump White House, there is no JG that is in the cabinet or anything. There's nothing. Makes no sense.
It reminds me of the Edgar Allan Poe, The Prolonged Letter. We read that, Brooks. in
Yes.
like we everyone don't know, what is the letter, like what is in the letter.
This is the purloined letter, and it's the presumption is that whatever's in there is like intended to be in there, and at least Trump knows, and he doesn't. And this is the thing that's like, again, really important to this. Trump doesn't know anything. He's fucking useless, doddering old man who's experiencing early stages of dementia. Absolutely he is. This just as a thing, just as a note, because I don't want to just say that and have it be a thing, but it's worth like, one sec. I just need to go to Google. 1 second. Boop, 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 boop. we're just gonna dive in and you can tell me if you think this is the same Trump as we have now, because I don't think it is.
Drugs, and with that, and with everything else, plenty unfortunately come through.
He was always dumb, but watch his mannerisms.
Our southern border. But I'm going to ask Brandon to come up, say a few words, and maybe introduce our friends and some very brave people. Brandon, please. Thank you.
Thank you, President. We really appreciate all the support that you've given the Border Patrol. We appreciate the support that you've given ICE. My name is Brandon Judd. I'm the president of the National Border Patrol Council.
So just how he was talking there versus here he is now. Fucking, like, it's almost a joke in comparison.
Mr. President, we're not ready yet? Yeah.
He's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 the countries that are in the top 5 positions. So that's to me, it's very exciting, and it's been received very well. So I just wanted to tell you about this too.
This is not the same person, like, even genuinely. Oh, his dad had Alzheimer's? Well, I'm okay with him having Alzheimer's. I mean, I wouldn't say that about a lot of people, but Trump having it would, at some point, I think he'd end up, like, it'll be fun to watch. But the way that this works and the way this is set up is this is a person who is, they believe pulling strings. They believe controlling all of this. Just like people believe this about Elon Musk, that he's this brilliant guy who can figure stuff out and is doing a million things. But the reality is that because he has this mystique and this questionable black box of we don't know, when Michael Waltz invited the wrong person, no one said a fucking thing to each other. Like, again, people don't, if you haven't been in a situation, like, you would have done this with your friends. If you didn't recognize a name in a friendly group chat, you'd be like, who the fuck, who are you? Like, what random name being added? You're not cool. No one's cool with that. But they were in this for military strikes. So it's laughable on its face. And that Trump has that level of control in their minds, but absolutely clearly doesn't understand anything that's happening. This is why I keep pushing back to this uncertainty as a universal reality and terror that I think people will feel. No, the problem has it exactly right. Who wants to be the one to say, what if Trump intended for this? Then you're questioning Trump and you're fired. Like, that's the deal. That's 100% what's happening here. And we're at a point where people don't ask about random dude in a fucking military chat. And that we're there, that's the story to me. That we are such a dysfunctional government in every single way that no one questioned it over the course of a day and a half or 2 days or 3 days. No one said a thing. And they all noticed it. They all would have noticed it. And the CIA director, the director of national intelligence, these people are in the chat. It's comedy. It's comedy level that these people are there and they didn't, hey, do you know who the fuck that is? Just as a heads up to Mike, just once. Just once. So here's the goal. Join the server, join the Miro board, run around in it, It is all waiting for you. Ce n'est pas un éléphant. Ce n'est pas un éléphant. It's all waiting here. Fill things in. I'm going to be doing this. I've got a whole bunch I'm going to be adding. I've got a whole bunch I'll be adding. It's pretty interesting. I've been having fun. Claude updated. I don't care how anyone people. AI is an interesting tool. Claude has internet search now, and internet and deep search have saved me a lot of time in these things. It's kind of nice. You double check all the sources, but there's a bunch of stuff that is just saving me a ton of time on. Thank God. We need to get the rest of the stakeholders in place. We need to figure out shaping of coverage. We need to, in my mind, consistently look back on who's connected to data brokers and security of information. Palantir, definitely. Or, honestly, Musk's stupid Starlink shit, because he's trying to get Starlink as the center of it. Figure that out. Define shared experience elements, and then we're going to reframe it Friday. Friday is our day to reframe it. So that's my schedule for it. And yes, the delirium elephant is why I chose that. It's one of my favorite elephants because it's delirium. Delirium tremens, if you're unfamiliar. Beautiful. The bottle's one of the best bottles maybe ever for beer. They just knew what they were doing. But with that, I am going to slowly push my way out of the stream. And I'm going to say, hey, thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. If you appreciate this and you want to be a part of it, discord.gg/DGQC. Join up, say hi. We do theory and this. This is one of my side projects. We got a bunch of projects we're going to be doing on the DGQC over the course of time. We're trying to find more time to do things. This is the one I'm really passionate about, so that's how it works. And Saturdays is anti-oedipus. Anti-oedipus moved from Tuesday to Saturday because of In the Fold, which please, if you haven't joined and watched In the Fold, do that. It's a thing Sunday and I are doing. We're trying to do news during the day and give a different take on it. And of course, if you like it, please join Patreon, patreon.com/DGQC. Absolutely life-saving. And memberships, super chats, or gifted memberships are always great. If you're watching this after the fact, they have thanks as well, which is always lovely. And then I do have to actually plug, because I'm really excited about it. I made merch mostly for myself, and then I showed it to someone and they're like, oh, I would want one. And I'm like, really? So I set the prices to like just enough to just be just above. I make a couple bucks, but that's not like a lot. We have coffee cups and a Hawaiian shirt and t-shirts. I really, really like them. I've got my samples are coming, so I'm excited to share them. But they should be on our channel. Thank all of you for joining. I hope to see you soon. And until then, please take care of yourself.